was a wonderful story. There's two Dutch brothers, Emil and Paul Hendricks, and I've been doing business with them since 1983. And Big Ben was the first horse I purchased from them or with them. And I was at the Spruce Meadows Masters in September, and Emil, one of the brothers, was competing on the Dutch team. And we were talking one day, and he said, "Do you ever come to Europe to look at horses?" I said, "I do." And I said, "I normally go to Belgium, a little bit to Germany." He said, "You've never been to Holland?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, if you ever want to come," and he gave me his card. So I had a trip planned in, I guess, October, and I got done a couple of days early, so I called him. And he said, "There's a horse." He said, "You may not like him one little bit, and don't be offended. I mean, I won't be offended if you don't like him, or you may like him, but it's a horse you should see." And so we arranged to meet him. The horse was at another barn, a fellow named Bert Romp, and we arranged a place to meet. We went to see Big Ben, and many of the Dutch riders knew about him. And he came from a guy named Ludo Philparts, who was one of the top international Belgium riders. So these guys, it wasn't that he was undiscovered, just nobody was sure about him because he was so big, they thought, he'd be clumsy and slow. And as it turned out, he was an extremely fast horse and indoors. His indoor skills were wonderful. They thought he was too difficult, and they weren't wrong about that. No. He was a trick to train for sure, and however, they weren't sure, and so here was the horse. So we walk in the barn, and he's on the cross tie. He's got a saddle on because they knew we were coming with no bridle. And I remember looking at him, and he looked at me, and I just felt something, and I liked him. And so a rider demonstrated him for me for a few minutes, and I said, "Look, can I ride the horse, please?" And so I rode him. I rode him for maybe 15, 20 minutes, and just worked with his mind. That's all I did. I wanted to see what connection I could form, and it was wonderful. And so I said to Emil, "Come here a minute, please." And so he walked out into the ring, and I whispered to him, I said, "Do the best you can, but buy the horse." And he did. And I've always said that two things that I was the absolute most sure about in my life was buying Big Ben and marrying my wife. Those were the two things. And both turned out to be excellent decisions. But that's how that happened. And then we brought him home. And the first, I would say the first 6 months, and it went on all the time, but that first 6 months, he wasn't a people horse. He only put with people because they brought him his feed or he had to. He didn't really like people. And he grew to like people because the people that looked after him, and because of me, he just became to like people. And if anyone ever saw him on his retirement tour, he was fantastic with people and just became that way. But the way you had to train him, I always say it was the way my wife trained me. But by the time I did something, I thought it was my idea. But really, it was never my idea. So I realized that after a few years of marriage. So I thought, I'm going to try this on Big Ben. And it worked beautifully, by the way.